Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. All right, so today we're painting Cape Cod Sunset, and I'm going to be sipping on a little Merlot, but you can sip whatever you'd like. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. All right, so for materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 canvas. You can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'm going to be using. I'll be using acrylic paint. The colors are titanium white, cobalt blue, Mars black, green oxide, chrome yellow, fire red, fluorescent orange, and fluorescent pink. You can certainly switch those up, but those are the colors I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using 3 brushes today. I have, a 1/2 inch wide bristle brush, a number 8 round brush, and a number 1 round brush, and I'll call these small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And again, you can switch those up a little bit. You're going to need a cup of water for washing your brushes, and you'll also need a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below the video in the description, I'm going to be providing you with a few things. One of them is a link where you can purchase this exact paint kit, the same materials and brushes that I'm using. It's affordable and convenient, so that's there for you if you want. It's got instructions and stuff. I'm also going to be giving you a free downloadable link where you can download an image of the final painting. So you can just print that and use it as a visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. All right. So for the first step, what we're going to be doing is we're painting the sky. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush, and the colors that I'm using are blue and white, and I'm also going to use red, yellow, pink, and orange as well. So there's going to be a ton of colors in this sky. What I'm going to attempt to do is have it the lightest up in the top left-hand corner, and I want it the darkest as it gets down towards that horizon. I'm going to be using kind of a left to right brush stroke, almost like a crisscross kind of brush stroke. And I'm never going to use a lot of paint, so that way I can continually kind of shift colors. And to know how far down we're going to go, it's going to be a little bit less than halfway down. So if you eyeball maybe where you believe the halfway point is, you can, so for me, the halfway is probably about right here. I'm going to come up maybe about an inch or so, and that's how far down I'm going to bring my sky. I'm going to mark that first, so that way I don't go any farther. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a little bit of blue on my brush, just to mark how far down I want to go. So again, I'm going to eyeball kind of halfway between here and here, come over to the left, and then just go up maybe about an inch or so. And then to know how far down that is, so you can do it on the same side, you can use your brush as a measuring tool. So I can put my brush against the side of my canvas, and I can say, oh, okay, well that mark comes to about here. And I'm going to go right onto the other side of the canvas, put my brush at the same position, mark it with my finger, and then I can mark it with my brush. Now I know that's what, I don't want my horizon to go farther than that. So I know I have a little bit of blue on my brush. I'm just going to pick up some white to get my sky started. And I'm going to start just kind of in the middle so I can see if it's light or dark. That's a little bit darker than I want for over here. So I'm going to just bring this over to this side. And I'm primarily going to use the blue and white up at the top. But I really start using the sunset colors, which are the red, orange, yellow, and pink, really quickly. But I want to just kind of start it and see what I've got, and then I can start adding a little bit of colors. I'm going to go right into my orange and white next. I don't go from blue to yellow because that's going to make me a big green sky, and I don't want to have a big green sky. So I just wanted to show you kind of this overlapping type method that I've got with this crisscross brush stroke. And what's going to happen is these are going to end up looking like little clouds that are all being illuminated by that setting sun. We'll put the sun on later, but right now we're just trying to get the background of the sky nice and in place so that, oh, I like to paint the edges of my canvas too, so you see me creep around the side every now and again. That makes my painting look all nice and complete, and I don't have to worry about putting a frame on it. So again, I just kind of am going into this lighter area over here. I think I'm going to pick up a little bit of orange and yellow and white and just start getting these colors on here. And you can make yours as light or as dark as you want. But when I created this painting, I was referring to a photograph as my visual reference to complete this. And this particular sunset sky was really dark as it got down towards the horizon line. So I'm going to try and emulate that. I do know that if I want to have some nice purple in here, I can put a little bit of blue and red on my brush. And again, I'm never using a ton of paint. This way I can continue to control how light or how dark or how much each color kind of blends together. And right now I'm just kind of alternating my colors. Here's my mark. I don't want to go further than that. That was a little bit of red I just picked up. Now maybe I'm going to pick up a little bit of the pink. And you can see I'm really just kind of having fun with these colors. I do want my darkest area to be right at the horizon. So that's going to come with purple or with red and blue, which is going to make like this really deep purpley kind of color. But you're going to find as you go through this process, maybe you want yours to be a little bit more on the orange side as opposed to on the purpley side. So it's really going to be kind of a visual preference as you go through this stage. And if you end up getting, you know, too much paint on there and you're like, oh, this is just too dark, or you muddle it together too much, don't worry about it because it will dry. And when it dries, you can certainly just kind of pop in more colors on top of it. You can get it to be either more contrasting or more subtle, whatever you visually like, it's your game. So you can make it as you know, vibrant or as subtle as you want to. And you can see I'm not going too fast because I'm kind of strategically placing these colors where I want them to go. I do, again, have that side really as the darkest spot. I'm going to just kind of lighten this area a little bit more. And again, because I'm using these crisscrossy motions, I'm getting this to almost look like these are little clouds that are just being illuminated by the setting sun. And again, I'm just kind of going right now, I just picked up a little bit of orange and yellow, and this is just going to kind of add to my colors here. Maybe I'll put a little bit more yellow up here. And again, have fun with this. It does not have to be the exact color combination as mine is. Maybe, again, maybe you love the purpley aspect of it. You can combine some of that blue with the pink, and that makes a really cool, vibrant purple. So have fun with this. Make it whatever you visually want it to be. But again, if you can get this right bottom to be the darkest and the top left to be the lightest, that's going to help with the illusion that we're attempting to create here. So what I'm doing right now as I'm finishing up my sky is I'm just kind of going back over with a very light brush stroke and almost finish blending these spots, making sure I've got every spot covered on that sky. And then I am going to use this same brush for the next step, but I'm going to wash it and dry it in between. So once I get this sky done, I'm going to wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're painting our water. It's going to be kind of a longer step, but it's worth it at the end. We're going to be using our big bristle brush, and you're going to use a ton of colors. So you're going to use all the colors that you used in your sunset plus black. We're going to use black down in the bottom left-hand corner, but we'll get to that in a minute. So it's going to be blue, white, black, red, orange, yellow, and pink are going to be the colors. But how I'm going to start this is I'm going to start it by using white paint, and we're going to make a straight horizon without a ruler. So I'm going to give you some tips on that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to squish it in my white paint on the side of my palette. So what's going to happen here is it's going to take my bristles and it's going to bring them nice and together, and that's going to give me control when I go to do this line. I need my horizon line all the way in my sky. So I'm going to visually kind of pick my highest point of the sky, or where it is unpainted, and come across to the left, which is going to be, for me, a little bit higher than this original mark. So I'm going to make myself a mark. I'm going to use my handy ruler of my brush, and I'm going to see where this mark lands. I'm going to make sure I put it at the same spot on this side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect both of my white dots in a pretty fast motion. I think I just got paint on my face. So if I have paint on my face, sorry. And I'm going to almost be pushing my brushes. My brush itself goes that way. My bristles are up, and I'm going to, in essence, be kind of pressing it against my canvas, and I'm going to be pulling it towards here. You can go from the left to the right or the right to the left, but the key here is to keep your eye on the prize, which is the other dot, and just go for it. If you run out of paint, who cares? You can add more paint. So here I go. I'm going to start, this is this dot, and I'm just going to kind of go across. I've got my hand resting on my canvas. I just kind of almost ran out of paint there, so I just turned my brush over. I'm going to come from this side just so I can grab some of this wet paint. And I'm out of paint. It's where you can't see it, so I have to add more paint to my brush. You might not have to add more paint, but I did so you guys could actually see it. And then I just go and I make any little adjustments that I think are necessary. And if you run through wet paint, don't worry about it, because that's just going to add to the coloring of the water itself. So now that I have that really light area for my horizon, I'm going to have my water be the lightest up at the top, and this is going to kind of come down into a ripple down at the bottom left. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to wash my brush. I'm going to kind of put my ripple in place right now. I'm going to use white with blue to start, and then I'm going to go into some black. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in this bottom right-hand corner, I'm creating this like diagonal kind of ripple. So it starts in the bottom right, and it goes maybe, about almost halfway into your canvas. And then I'm going to do another one, something like this, and another one, something like this. So they're kind of at a diagonal. This top one is at a little bit less of a diagonal. And then I'm going to do this really big one over here. You don't need to bring it all the way up to the top. And I'm just kind of doing something like this. And I'm going to not pick up any more white. I'm picking up blue to get it to go into this corner. And now I'm going to pick up blue and a touch of black, because I want it to be really dark in this bottom right-hand corner. And then once I've got this on here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working my way up towards the lighter part of my water. And this is meant to kind of resemble like ripples coming into this marshy field. This is intended to look like the ocean at the Cape in Massachusetts. And there is lots of ripples that come in from the ocean into these marshy lands. So that's kind of what we're looking to achieve here. I'm right now just picking up white paint to get these ripples to kind of blend together. And my darker area is still nice and wet because I used a good amount of paint. So this is allowing me to get them to kind of blend in together. And right now, again, I'm just picking up white, which is also helping to work off that black that was on my brush. And again, I'm just kind of going in between these ripples and adding like a little bit of a lighter streak. And now I'm just going to pick up some more white, get this whole top left area the lightest because it's the lightest up here. And I'm just adding white paint to my brush, which is again working off a lot of that blue and the darkness from the black. And if you can think of this as maybe this is your nucleus and everything from here kind of does this, all your lines kind of go like this, diagonal, 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 diagonal. That's going to help you to get an even better perspective on this and to give it a little bit more dimension. And again, right now I'm just picking up white to get these to blend in together. And now the fun is going to start with me adding my sunset colors. So white, maybe a little bit of red I've got on here, and this is going to help me to add some of these sunset colors. Maybe I'm going to go pick up a little bit of orange and yellow. I have not washed my brush yet. I'm just kind of adding these little streaks of the sunset colors as if they're little tiny ripples, or they're being illuminated by the beautiful sun that is setting. And again, maybe you like the pink best, maybe you like the red the best, whatever works out for you, but I'm not doing a solid color. I'm definitely just kind of almost doing these little streaks. And again, I've got this kind of diagonal perspective going on here. So as I get towards the top, my brush strokes are going to be more left to right as opposed to diagonal. I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel a little bit because I want to incorporate just a touch of blue up here too, just to, kind of emulate the darkness that's at the bottom of the sky there. And the trick here as you get into these ripples is less is more. You don't need to go crazy with the amount of paint that's on your brush. You do want to make sure that you have the entire area covered, but you don't need to over blend it. So if you just kind of go slow and control where you're putting the paint and how much of it you want to use, you'll be able to shift colors. You'll be able to get some of the more vibrant tones to it versus some of the more subtle tones. And it becomes, a nice representation of what's going on in the sky, or almost a reflection of what's going on in the sky. If you wanted it to be, if I have a ton more yellow and darkness on this side, maybe I put, more of that down here to represent what's above it. This reflection is a long distance off from that particular sky, so it doesn't have to be exact replica of what you see in the sky, but you can certainly give it the hints that, if this is my darker side and this is my lighter side, that's going to translate well. Just had a lot of red on my brush there, so we're going to wipe some of that off. It'll translate well as you're going through this process if you can, use your sky as a reference as you're putting down these colors. And again, I'm just kind of adding some more of the colors to emulate what's in that sky as I'm kind of finishing up here, just kind of adding, little hints here and there to make sure it translates well. That's, that's my biggest goal. This is a little too orange over here for me, but I know it's going to be hidden by a whole bunch of marshland and big, huge grass later, so I'm not terribly concerned. I know where there's going to be strategically placed items on this canvas, so I know that if it's not perfect, I'm okay with that. And if it's not a mirror image of what's happening in the sky, totally okay with it, because everybody's paintings are going to come out different from one another, and that's the beauty of painting. And then when you do get done with this step, we are going to switch brushes to your small brush. So we can get this water on here. I think that's a pretty good translation here. Hold on one second. Let me just kind of add a little bit more down here. But again, I'm going to be hiding it with some marshy areas, so I'm not going to overpaint here. That sometimes that's my downfall, is I just keep painting because I just keep wanting to change it and make it better and better and better. But I think I'm going to call it right now, and I'm going to switch brushes to my small brush for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting the sun. I'm going to be using my small brush, and the dominant colors I'm going to be using are white, yellow, and orange. But as you go through this process, you might decide that you want to add a little bit more like low-lying clouds and stuff like that, and therefore you could in essence use any color in your sunset that you want. But we're going to just start with white, and then I'll transition into yellow and to orange. So what I recommend doing on this is the tip I can give you is don't use a lot of paint. When you use a very tiny bit of paint, it's going to dry really fast for you, and you can keep building the colors of the sun. So I'm going to start with a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush. I'm going to figure out where I want my sun to go. So for me, I'm going to have my sun a little bit left of the center of my canvas and maybe about an inch above my horizon line. And mine's going to be probably the size of maybe like a dime or a big peanut or something. So here's my center. I'm going to go over to the left a little bit, and I'm really just going to create a circle with very little bit of paint on my brush. And once I have that on there, what I'm now going to do is create what I refer to as like the halo or the glow around it. So I don't wash my brush. I'm going to just pick up a tiny bit of yellow paint in addition to whatever remnants of white I had on there. And now I'm going to go around my white area. And you can even overlap it a little bit. And I say so little paint, I'm either going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel because I don't want a lot of paint on there. I probably am going to add another layer of white into that center in a second, but right now I'm going to pick up a touch of orange and make sure I don't have too much. And now this is going to be on, in addition or perhaps on the outside of the yellow area. So this in essence kind of makes a glow coming out of that sun. I am going to pick up a tiny touch more of white because I want my center to be a bit brighter, and it's dry, so I can totally do that. I can just kind of keep adding right to it. And if I make it too yellow or too orange, I can certainly go ahead and add more. And I kind of want mine to look like it's kind of sinking down into some clouds, and it's ready to just nestle under, past that horizon line. I just added orange to my brush. What I'm doing is I'm going to pull out some little low-lying clouds that it, being the sun, is just kind of illuminating. You can almost even cut off the bottom part of the sun because it could be just like melting into a cloud or something, and you can just bring these little cool streaks out. I'm going to bring a little bit of purple, which is blue and pink. I'm pre-mixing it on my palette. I just kind of like this darker hue of purple down here, and you can see how those dark hues are going to make it pop a little bit more. So this is, have fun with it if you want that darkness down there, or if you want it to be really bright, totally up to you. And you can just kind of keep tweaking it until you feel that it's all done. But we are going to use the same brush for the next step. So after you get your sun on there, just wash and dry that small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are doing the reflection of the sun. We're going to use the small brush, and we're going to use the same colors that we used for the sun. So it's going to be white, yellow, and orange. And if you want, you can add more of your, sunset colors on it. But white to yellow to orange is how we're going to start. So I'm going to take my white paint. I want my reflection to be coming off at a diagonal from directly underneath my sun, and then it's going to come off at a diagonal. So I'm going to have the reflection of it wider at the top of my diagonal line, and it's going to get more narrow as it comes down towards the end of it. And I'm going to be using a horizontal brush stroke. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to be doing these horizontal brush strokes. And as I come towards the tip of it, they're going to get more narrow. So I don't need it to be a perfect line. You can almost just, by the time you get to the end, just kind of wiggle it a little bit. And I know that there's a song with that, and I'm not going to sing it because I sing it too many times. Wiggle it just a little bit. I want to see you wiggle it. And once I've got my white, I don't wash my brush, and I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm going to put it on the exterior, in essence, the glowy part of my reflection. So I have yellow on there, and I'm going kind of the same thing I did for the first layer, or the first stroke, but now I'm using yellow. So I'm putting yellow on the outside of this reflective little ripple. And then I'm going to do orange. So now I've got orange. And what's happening by putting these higher contrasting colors on the outside of your sun reflection is it makes the sun reflection pop out more, because you're adding this contrast to it. So if you didn't have really dark water, your reflection wouldn't be very evident. So what this is doing is it's helping you make that reflection pop out of the canvas a little bit more. And then if that's not vibrant enough for you, then you can start adding, you know, some darker colors into it, because again, this is meant to look like the reflection of the sky that's happening above it. So if you wanted yours to be a little bit more dramatic, you could certainly start adding in those even darker colors next to it. But again, you don't need a lot of paint. And then once you feel like you have it all on there, we are going to be switching brushes to the medium brush. So once you get this on and you're happy with it, you can just kind of keep tweaking it. Once you're happy with it, we're going to put this small brush away in the water cup and take out the medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're doing the first layer of our wild grass. I don't even know if it's called grass or reeds or something, but the grassy part that comes out of the ocean by the edge. So the color I'm using is black. I'm going to be using my medium brush, and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to first kind of lay out where I want these clumps of grass to come out. So I'm going to just take some black paint, and you can use a lot of paint in this step on your brush. And I'm going to have a big section over on the left, so I don't want to hide this cool reflection that I have. So I'm just going to kind of go straight down from that, and maybe about halfway between the top of my canvas and the bottom, or the top of the horizon and the bottom. So maybe somewhere about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make really messy kind of wiggle marks from the left to right. And this is in essence going to be translate as like the shadow and the ripply part where these pieces of grasses are going to come out. I'm going to go to the right side and do the same thing, just kind of lay my groundwork where I want. I think I might have, yeah, this is going to be fine. Maybe something like that. On the right side, I'm going to kind of keep it parallel. You could do like one higher or lower if you wanted to, but I'm going to kind of keep them parallel to one another. And on this side, I want these ones to be smaller. So I'm just going to do maybe like 2 or 3 little kind of messy sections where these pieces of these clumps of grass are going to be sprouting out from. And again, just kind of left to right. And these don't have to be systematic. Maybe one of them is bigger than the other. Maybe, you know, they almost go in together. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the grass part. So these type of grass, they have at the top of them, they're really kind of sticking straight up. And then about a partial way down, this is the ones that are really filled in, partial way down, they're almost like curved. So I'm going to demonstrate the big ones and some small ones, because I'm going to have like 4 clumps of small ones. I'm going to have like 1, 2, 3 clumps of small ones that are just baby ones, and then I'm going to have a big massive clump over here. So I know that I want this bigger section to come up about halfway between my horizon line and the top of my canvas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do these like curved lines, again, to give myself a roadmap where I want these to go. And I don't want it to come as far over as here. So that's going to kind of, in essence, give me that set. this one right here, I'm just going to kind of do some shorter ones in through here. And then I'm going to do the same thing for these ones here. Just going to do some kind of shorter, curvy kind of pieces of grass. Same thing for here. These are more, they've got a big curve on the top. You don't want them to all look like they're sprouting out of the same spot. This one right here, I think I'm going to do this one a little bit taller, but again, curvy pieces. This whole area in through here, in a minute, I will just completely cover in with a whole bunch of curves. But at the top of each one of these sections, I'm going to put straight pieces coming up. They don't have to be super duper straight, but you do want them to be more straight than these curvy pieces. Same thing with in through here. So coming out of here, I want to have some more kind of straight pieces as opposed to these curvy pieces. And same thing with over here. And you don't have to go crazy. You just want to do, you know, more, you don't want them to bend over as much. And this is, they almost kind of look like the makings of like a cattail or something, where a cattail you would see like a structure at the top of these pieces of grass. But in this case scenario, they just are, you know, tall with a little bit of bend. And one of my tricks to not having wide lines, even though I'm kind of using a big paintbrush, is I added a touch of water in my paint, and I'm using a lot of paint and I'm not pressing hard. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more over here. And again, I don't want this to look like these are just, you know, totally separate pieces of, you know, grassy stuff. So I am going to disperse some other ones that cross over from one another. And sometimes the faster you go with this kind of step, the more natural it's going to look. So don't think about it too hard. I mean, this is meant to be wild Mother Nature at her best, where the little, you're going to hear the little creatures, you know, chirping as the sun is going down, and you know, maybe you hear a dolphin off in the distance making some fun calls. I don't even know what kind of noise a dolphin makes. I know it could be high pitched. I'm not even going to attempt that one, but you can certainly attempt it if you'd like to. But right now I'm just kind of doing these curvy pieces like I was talking about in this whole midsection in through here. And I'm going to make sure by the time I'm done with this step that I have my straight pieces at the top and curvy pieces at the bottom. That's kind of the trick here. Straight at the top, curvy at the bottom. And then once you get done this step, we're going to use this same brush for the next step, so you can wash it and dry it. And don't worry about getting it, again, too perfect. Just kind of get it as filled in as you want. You can still have some little peekaboo spots, and then just, you don't even have to wash the brush. We're going to use the same brush with the same color for the next step, so just get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're using our medium brush, we're using the black paint, which was on it from the previous step, and we're making the first layer of the reflections of the grassy part. So I don't want to cover up the whole water, and I do want it to still look like my water's ripply. So I'm going to be making my reflection with kind of curvy or wiggly lines. I know that my grass is shorter on this side and longer on this side, so I definitely want it to come pretty far down on the canvas on the left side and less far here. And then when I go to do these ones, my ripples are coming this way, so that's the direction that my reflection is going to go. And same thing with here. The ripples are kind of going this way, so my reflection is going to go this way. I'm going to start over here because it's the biggest area and I don't know how much paint I have on my brush, so this is kind of like a safety zone. So I'm going to start at the bottom of that landing area, and I'm just really going to make some messy wiggles. And I want it to be kind of thicker or have more structure where it meets the grass. And it's okay if you run out of paint. That's going to make it look even more natural. But we are going to be doing another layer on top of this later too. So don't worry if you don't get it perfect, but you definitely want to have some good wiggles in there. That's going to be my word of the video is wiggle. And then I'm going to go over to the right side. I am reloading my brush, so I make sure I have some paint on there, but I don't need a ton of paint. And then I'm going to start in this direction, and I'm going to make, you know, some wiggles. And I know that this one's the tallest, so I'm going to bring this one down the farthest towards the end of my canvas. And then I'm going to do the same thing with these two. And just to give the illusion that this is shorter, I'm not going to, I just had a bird hit my windows. Sometimes you see me go like this. It's not because I'm twitching or anything. It's because I live in the middle of the woods, and it's amazing how many birds hit my windows. But even though my windows are not the cleanest, I can't believe they can't see my dirty windows. But anyways, so I am giving the illusion that these are shorter by just not pulling these reflections quite as far down. And you can see I'm not doing anything terribly tricky here. And when you feel like you've got this all accomplished, we are going to switch brushes to our small brush. So you can put this medium brush away in your water cup and take out your small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we are painting a little tiny sailboat. I'm going to be using my small brush, and I'm going to be using black paint only. I just want this to look like a little silhouette way off in the distance. I'm going to be making it really tiny right in through here. So a couple of tips for doing this. One, you could practice on a little piece of paper or something before you actually go for it on your canvas. You could use a pencil if you want to. I'm just going to kind of go for it. I'll show you the shapes that I do, and it's okay if your shapes don't come out exactly as mine, because sailboats come in all different sizes and shapes, and this one could have a big huge sail or a little sail, and it's way off in the distance, so it doesn't really matter if it's perfect or not. So a couple of tips for making small lines. I'm going to take my small brush and I'm going to add a drop of water to my black paint, and I'm going to just make it almost like an ink consistency. And then another tip that I have is I take my brush and I spin it right around on the side of my palette, but that just reminded me of a song. So you spin me right round, baby, now right. You spin me right round, baby, right round. I don't know. I'm stuck in the 80s. So those songs just keep popping in my head. But you spin it right around on the side of your palette, and that's going to make it super pointy when you go to apply the paint. Just don't press hard. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is make the boat part where you would sit in, and I'm really just going to make a horizontal line that's about 1/4 of an inch away from my horizon line, 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up the little corners so this almost looks like a smile line, like a, you know, not a super smile, but a little bit of a smile. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just gently make a little tiny reflection. Oops, I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel. Just a teeny tiny bit of paint underneath it. Just kind of wiggle it. I'm telling you, I got to get a new word, because wiggle it just a little bit is wearing on me here. That's going to give you almost that ripple effect in the water. Now I'm going to do a vertical line from anywhere in the middle of your boat straight up. And it can be as tall as you want it. I'm going to put mine probably about 1/2 of an inch into my sky. So I'm going to start somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle. And I'm just going to go straight up. And I'm hardly pressing on my canvas. Just a little tip of my brush. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 arced lines from that center to the tips of my boat. And these don't have to be exactly the same. It actually looks better when they're not exactly the same. So this is the bottom part of the sail being tied or attached to the front and the back of the boat. So I'm going to make one a little bit shorter than the other. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the outside of the sail. So I want this, for me, I want it to look like the wind is blowing the sail that way. So this left sail, I'm going to make with a arcing motion coming in towards the pole in the middle of the sailboat. So I'm not going to start right exactly at the top. I'm going to come down a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come close to the pole, and then I'm going to bring it out a little bit. So that way, and if you need to extend your boat, like I'm going to extend mine a little bit, that's fine. And then the other one, I'm going to bubble out in that direction. So I'm going to take it from kind of near the top and bubble it out. And that's going to make it look like the wind is blowing it. And now when I go to paint this in, I'm going to paint in both of my sails black, just because I want them to be like a silhouette. But I'm actually going to leave a little bit of a gap between the two, so it looks like you can see the sky behind it. So here we go. I'm going to do this right one, and I'm actually going to leave a little gap between the sail and that pole. And I'm just coloring it black. And again, if you wanted to, you could certainly add other colors to it. But this is just a nice simple version, just gives you the illusion that there's a little tiny sailboat out there. Just don't color in that gap part if you want to give it the same little illusion I have. And then if you feel you want to bring these corners out a little bit more, I want to bring my corners out a little bit more. Make sure the bottom of your boat is flat. If it's not flat, it's going to look like it is floating or levitating above the water. And that's all I'm going to do for my little sailboat. The next step, we're going to switch to the medium brush. So after you get done your sailboat, you can put your small brush away in your water cup, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're finishing our grass, including the reflections, because we're going to be using the same color, and it's all kind of easy to do it together. So the colors I'm going to be using are green, yellow, white, and if you need to, you can bring back a little bit of black if you run into trouble. So I'm in essence doing the same thing that I did on the first round, only I'm going to be a little bit messier, and I want to have some more vibrancy, some life with some shorter pieces in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with green and yellow on my brush at the same time, and I'm just going to start to make myself some additional pieces of grass. I'm not concerned about going, oh, I want a piece of grass here, and oh, I'm not concerned about going exactly on that black as it was. These, I'm considering them to be additional pieces of grass. And then when I get down into the reflection part, I can just kind of take those colors and just kind of wiggle it on top of that black a little bit. And I know that because there's a black base underneath it, these colors are going to get darker as they dry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using some green and white, and this is going to give me some pieces with some more life in them once I start using that little white. And you can even put some right like within that landing area. If you can put some like short little clumps in that area, that's going to make it look even more natural. So right along that area where it goes into the ground, or into the ground, I guess water is ground in a sense, is it? I don't know. I'm going to put little tiny pieces there. That's going to really help with the illusion of it. And then as I get up in through here, you can, if you want, you can add more black. I just added a touch more black to my brush, but I really want to make sure I have that it's translated as straight ones at the top, and then the curved ones as it comes down. So whatever you need to do to get it to, work out the way that it visually looks good for you, that's fine by me. And then I'm continuing to just kind of add to this. I am using a little bit of black because I'm feeling like I want a couple more wild pieces coming out here, and the black really helps to add to that. And maybe a little bit more in through here. This side to me looks pretty good, so I'm going to move right on to the next side, adding the green and yellow as my first colors that I'm utilizing in through here. Adding some of those long ones, some of the curved ones, I'll be doing the shorter ones in a minute, but I'm really just kind of tackling these longer ones to start the party here. And I think I want another couple of these long pieces in through here, maybe some broken ones. I don't know, I like having kind of chaos when it comes to doing my Mother Nature paintings. I just added some more green on my brush to add some green to this reflection. And you can see I'm not going exactly on every little mark that I made on the first round of reflection. If I was to do that, then it's not gonna translate as natural. Now I'm gonna start using my white. This is gonna provide these shorter, more visible kind of pieces of grass down at that base where it is coming right out of the water. These are the little ones that haven't grown all the way yet. Maybe these are the ones that all the little creatures hide in, so they don't, get eaten by the fish or anything that's lurking underneath these marsh waters. I think they're marshy. It's amazing how much I have to think about these little things as I'm painting them. But I'm digging this. I think I want to add just a little touch more reflection here. Make sure that you've got enough life in this, and once you feel, actually I think I want to make this a little bit darker here. Once you feel like you've got as much on here as you want, we do have one tiny little step, which is the final step to any painting. So we're going to use that small brush. So once you get your grass finished, you can put this medium brush away in your water cup, and you can take out the small brush for the last step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to sign it, and that is the final step of any good painting. I usually sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right, but you could sign yours wherever you want. I'm going to use my small brush. I'm going to use black paint. I'm going to do my initials, but you could do your name, your first name, you could do the date, you could do a symbol, you could really sign it with whatever you want. And that is going to conclude this ocean seascape. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you love your painting, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.